Hello chess fans, today we're going to be looking at the Nimzo Indian, one of the most popular responses to 1d4 that black can play, and one of the most dynamic as well. So the Nimzo Indian starts after knight of 6, c4, e6, knight c3, and bishop e4. One of the main points of the Nimzo Indian is the fact that black is actually up on development, and also black is going to get a structural advantage. So black is usually going to take here, and white's going to take back like this, and black's structure is going to be better. Now the problem with the Nimzo is that black is also tending to give up the bishop pair very early on in the game, which means white usually has a long-term advantage. So let's start off with one of white's most least popular responses, which is a3. So after a3, what you can do is give white this weakness, and the move a3 is essentially wasted because we wanted to do this anyways. And now here black is going to put all their pawns on dark squares. After c5, a sample continuation might go for f3, wanting to play e4, knight c6, attacking the pawn here, e4, d6, putting all the pawns on dark squares after you've traded your dark square bishop is a good idea. And here one of the main ideas is we want to go knight a5, bishop a6, and possibly queen d7, queen a4 in some positions, all to attack the c pawn, maybe with rook c8 in the future as well. So let's say e5, and here we see the plan coming to the action after black is going to pretty much just target this pawn, and eventually black is going to win this pawn. White is going to have to prove some sort of a compensation for the pawn. So that's a3. The next move I'm going to cover is bishop g5, and I don't feel I really need to cover this move because after c5, black has a whole ton of threats, and it's going to be very similar to another line I look at. So the main idea for black is going to be to go for h6, bishop h4, and g5 at some point, along with queen a5, knight e4. The position gets very crazy, and really from here, it's mostly about ideas. So let's go to white's third most popular move, which is f3. The idea of f3 is they want to play e4. And now here you pretty much have two options that I think are pretty reasonable. Now the first option is the main line, and I don't think it's that good, which is to go d5. And here white pretty much has to play a3, and after bishop takes b takes c5. Notice we're not sacking a pawn because after queen a5 we have this fork. White would take here. And here don't take here because after this we have this famous Capablanca game in which Capablanca got destroyed as black. So instead we take with the knight attacking this pawn, and after d takes we have queen a5 with the fork. And this position is considered to be equal, but I don't really like this position for black because black doesn't have the bishop pair. White is going to be up, have some tactical defenses, and also white's just generally just more pleasant with more central control. So instead I recommend the move castles, which seems very counterintuitive because doesn't white get e4 as they wanted? But here e4 is not all that it seems, because after d5, c takes, e takes here, knight fd7, it seems like, oh, black is just worse. But actually white center is crumbling after c5 and knight c6. Notice that we have a French, except they don't have the c pawn, and we've traded that for the e pawn, which seemingly is bad, but that means they can't defend their d pawn. And after f4, c5, the position is considered to be equal or very, very, very slightly better for black, surprisingly. So that's why this 4 castles move against f3 is a very nice line. So next, let's look at queen c2, which is considered to be one of the main lines and one of the best ways to play. White's whole idea is that after bishop takes here, queen takes here is not ruining their pawn structure, and they're just going to have the bishop pair for free. So now here, the most popular line is to go castles, and here white has a whole host of options, which I don't think we should delve into. This is just a little bit too complicated. So instead of castles, I recommend the forcing d5, and this is known to be an absolutely insane variation that is super fun to play as black. Let's look at what happens. So here there's 2 moves that white can play. The less popular one is a3, which leads to slightly more boring positions, but after bishop takes, queen takes, we play knight e4 attacking the queen. Here white has to play queen c2, and here we go c5. Here we're just going to attack, attack, attack. The Nimzo is all about throwing punches as white as they're down on development. So d takes here, and here we don't care. We're playing a gambit now, and I know some of you might be like, oh, a gambit. Well, it doesn't really matter that much because black has so much compensation for the gambit after knight c6 that it doesn't even matter. For example, after c takes, e takes, black has the threat of bishop f5, queen a5 is coming in the future, castles, and the main point of the Nimzo shines brightly through here. Black is up on development. That is the main thing that's happened, and black has to take advantage of it immediately. White has played too many queen moves in this opening, and here black is considered to be equal. Now, you can also go for a more tame response after bishop takes, b takes, where you can just castle. And here, it's considered that black can go for c5 and d4, but I don't really like that sort of gambit because I think after, for example, knight f3, d takes c4, queen takes c4, this position is considered to be about equal, but black doesn't have the bishop pair, so it's not that pleasant. So after d5, they can also go for c takes. And after e takes, notice we're not playing queen takes because that would run into this pin, even though that would be allowed because of the pin. Here white would play bishop g5. And after h6, white can decide to be tame, give back the bishop here, and this position is clearly equal. If you're equal out of the opening with black, you have this pleasant structure. You can play bishop f5 with tempo. The position should be fine for you. But instead, bishop h4 is the challenging move. And here, again, the whole point of the Nimzo shines through. We're going to go absolutely insane. We're going to go c5, d takes c5, g5, punch after punch being thrown, bishop g3 and knight e4. And here with threats of bishop f5, playing knight c6, possibly knight d4, queen a5, the rook coming to the c file, castle's kingside. Black is just, again, up on development, has pressure on this knight, is probably going to double the pawns. And here black's position is incredibly crazy and incredibly hard for white to defend, but white is considered to be slightly better in this sort of position. Many lines actually lead to forced draws. But if you want to play this, I highly recommend doing more research on your own. So now let's look finally at the main line, which goes after e3. The idea of e3 is to defend this pawn, but also white wants to play e4 in the future with something like bishop d3, maybe knight e2, knight g3 to play e4. And here, the most popular move is to castle, but after castling, for example, I believe that white just has too many options here. For example, they have knight e2, they knight f3, bishop d3. A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. So instead, I recommend playing b6, which goes for one simple attacking plan, which has carried me through almost all of my chess career playing against d4, which is to go for bishop b7, castle's kingside, and the eventual knight e4, f5, d6, knight d7, knight f6, queen e8, queen h5. Now, I know I'm drawing a bunch of arrows, but you're going to see how this setup plays out. For example, white's most popular move, second most popular move here is bishop d3, which looks very natural, looking to play e4. Here we play bishop b7, stopping e4. They play knight f3, protecting the g2 pawn, and here we go for knight e4, attacking the c3 knight. They defend it, and here the whole idea is we're going to give up our bishop and play f5. And here it's such a nice and fluid attacking setup, and white players are going to lose here 90% of the time in practical play. In the Lichess database, black is scoring hugely here because of how hard it is to play with this horrible bishop. And the bishop pair, when the position is close, is just not very easy to play with. Here, black has ideas like castles, queen e8, queen g6, queen h5, maybe d6, knight f6, knight d7, knight f6, and here the position is very comfortable for black. Now, white doesn't have to do that. They can also go for knight after b6. They can also go for the more trendy move, which is knight e2, called the Reshevsky variation or the Fischer variation. The idea is that they don't want to double their pawns, but they don't want to play queen c2. Queen c2 also supports e4, but it wouldn't make much sense anymore. So here, if we take, okay, white is just clearly better because of the fact that they do have the bishop pair. So here we have to switch our plans a little bit. The knight e2 got rid of the bishop's defense of c4. So here we can play bishop a6. Nice move to attack the pawn and force them to make some sort of concession. So here the most often concession is to play a3, and after takes, we have the move d5. And here the position is supposed to be good for us because if they take, they're going to have to move their king, and we've gotten rid of the bishop pair. But instead of that, if they go for something like b3, we can castle, go for c5. And here we have a lot of pressure on this pawn, actually. For example, if bishop e2, we can go for something like knight c6, knight a5, as previously mentioned. Alright, so that's the end of today's video of the most basic ways to play the Nimzo Indian. I just wanted to give you guys an introduction to the Nimzo Indian. Obviously, if you want to play the Nimzo Indian at a higher level, you're going to have to do some of your own research in these sort of positions. With that said, that's the end of today's video, guys. If you liked the video and want to recommend another opening that I can cover quickly, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and tell me what opening I should do next in the comments down below.